Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second official Xfic reading and launch. If you're not familiar with us yet, Xfic is this new thing that we're trying out. This journal is sponsored with thanks to CPCW and KWH. It is still new, very new like a newborn, or maybe more new like the way a baby giraffe is new and a little uncertain on its feet, and also like a baby giraffe, a little alien looking. But it's this newness and uncertainty that is something I hope to keep it new for as long as we keep doing it, since I do very sincerely believe that uncertainty is the most vital ingredient to creative success and art worth doing. Art worth doing is hyphenated. So I can't exactly define what it is that we're doing, nor do I want to, since a definition would, by definition, be more certain than not. But perhaps after reading and hearing some of our Xfic writers tonight, it will make more sense, or it will make less sense, but in a good way. If you were left at all uncertain about what Xfic really is, it really is, a Penn magazine that is also a real official class taught by me, where you get real official course credit. And if you're interested in joining the next round in the fall of 2022, please do, and please talk to me. As for this group of writers over here, what I can tell you is that in one short semester, they completely revolutionized the art of nonfiction storytelling. No exaggeration. Exaggerating not being allowed in nonfiction. But to do this, Anna Collins spent the semester watching and rewatching and rewatching and rewatching David Lynch's surrealist masterpiece, Twin Peaks, until in the end she was taking personal calls from the FBI in the middle of class. Peyton Toops delved into the ekphrastic and sonic domains of St. Vincent and Bjork and Arca. Daniel X. Tao, Xfic's fearless web editor, went into deep space to critique capitalism and mine asteroids for Mexite and Transformium. EVA INGBER menaced our locks of luscious hair all semester with her scissors and wig disguises. Brian Lee infiltrated the memory police who work deep inside the catacombs of the Penn Museum. It was basically a high-concept philosophical version of Night at the Museum. And Anna Nagar, our resident den mother and pet sitter, also went into deep cover as her future self. And last but not even conceivably least, our brilliant managing editor, without whom none of these pieces would ever be seen the light of day, Chelsea Zhu, who set out with the humble goal of writing a digital love story that would, with any luck, go viral by the end of the semester. It went viral in the first week. So a big shout out to Chelsea Zhu. And with that, our first reader is, who's the first reader?
Should I just start? Okay. This morning, I woke up to a baby on my doorstep. Not an angel, nor Professor Albus Dumbledore, nor stork of any kind dropped it off. Rather, the good folks at Amazon.com have delivered me my little bundle of joy. More accurately, they have presented me with the bump that precedes the baby, a baby in waiting of sorts. This morning, I am expecting. That's right, you didn't know that you can order motherhood from Amazon? In my hands, I hold the future, and let me tell you, my future smells like synthetic, rotten fish. Not only does the stomach stink of plastic silicone, but I can make it shake with my hand like a bowl of Jell-O. It cost $120, thank God for Amazon returns, and weighs approximately 5.5 pounds. From my vantage point, it is almost identical in look and consistency to a hairless Egyptian Sphinx cat. And lo and behold, it comes with a freakish little indent of a belly button, designed for comfort and realism. Briefly stripping down, I strap myself into the belly. It's exhilarating, but I can't button my jeans. A later problem. For a few days, the fleshy blob sits on the kitchen counter, a fun gag that scares visitors and doubles as a stress toy for me to jiggle while I speak to my sister on the phone. I decide I will begin my pregnancy at the start of a fresh week, as all expecting mothers do. Sunday comes around and I begin to have second thoughts. For the first time in maybe 2 years, I am cripplingly ill with a nasty cold. Tempted to push my pregnancy to a later date, I remind myself that this is not how conception works. Ordering a smelly jelly bump on Amazon is how it works, right? And decide that the show must go on. I test for COVID and strep, and armed with my negative results, gear up for WWC, Week with Child. On Monday morning, I pull out the only dress I own that could possibly stretch over my soon-to-be prominent belly. To get the stomach on, I have to place it belly button side down on the bed and fall flat over it like a pancake, wrapping it around my naked body and attaching it tightly and securely to the Velcro band that encircles my lower back. I stand. The package is secured. I scroll through the garbage dump of journalism that is the Daily Mail app on Snapchat, as is my daily custom, and am informed that J-Law has debuted her baby bump today. You and me both, sister. I'm satisfied. Tying my shoes is difficult, but not impossible. The real trick comes when I drop my eyebrow gel and realize that bending completely over is a luxury I no longer can afford. Retrieving said eyebrow gel is a slow and dedicated ordeal to which I am not accustomed, but I manage. Oh, and the extra weight on my bladder makes me really have to pee. My doctor once informed me that if I was having this much trouble holding in my urine at such a sprightly age, I would almost certainly need a catheter during and after real pregnancy because of how it would affect my bladder control. This fact, obnoxious little bugger, sits comfortably and unbothered in the back of my mind, the ever-present backseat driver sticking out its tongue and reminding me that if I think it's bad now, things are only getting worse. No longer. I stand up and square my shoulders, my belly protruding out in front of me like a world of its own. Grabbing a sip of water downstairs, there's a disconnect as I feel the liquid traverse into my little mouse belly hidden behind the giant balloon stomach. It's funny because I've actually always harbored a secret fantasy for being pregnant as a student. It probably started with the movie Juno and came to a real peak during Kylie Jenner's 2018 teen pregnancy. I've had a long-time fascination with teen moms, shout out MTV, they definitely played a role there too. Throw in a splash of religious upbringing, religious teachers and cousins becoming young mothers, and a pinch of middle child attention problems, and voila, the obsession was born. I had been for a long time now secretly in love with the idea of showing up to class or a party, bump in tow, like an untouchable and holy vessel. In real life, it's less romantic. I tiptoe down Locust, self-conscious and bashful, certain that people will notice, question, or laugh. Surprisingly, no one in class humors me with any kind of reaction. This gets annoying after a while. Did I say pinch of middle child attention problems? I meant heap. So in no time, I'm fully embracing my belly, bracing my hand gingerly on it when I get up to use the bathroom, and patting it lovingly during the lecture. Shh, baby. It's only marketing 211. You have nothing to be afraid of. Walking back from class, I feel protected by the gelatinous mass on my stomach, which I think needs a name. As I pass my reflection on the side of a building window, it occurs to me that I look exactly like my mom. I vividly remember a summery black maternity dress with printed daisies that she had worn throughout my entire childhood, almost identical to the one I'm wearing now. The sucky part is, because the belly, Genevieve, Cheryl, is engineered like an enormous sticky boob, minus the actual sticky part, the crevice between my actual stomach and the backside of the fake stomach is hot, sweaty, and probably smelly. All my ladies out there know exactly what I'm talking about. I can feel a rash brewing as the fleshy mass wiggles around on my abdomen. By the time I get home, my cold has reached the emptying the tissue box phase, and all I can do is stay in bed in misery. Somehow, feeling so crappy feels the most in line with my conception of pregnancy so far. I'm tempted to remove the sweaty mess and hang it up to dry, but alas, I'm going for the real deal here. Real mothers can't unstrap. So I remain fatigued, headachy, nauseous from the pressure of the 5-pound meatloaf, and peeing endlessly. But hey, I can balance my laptop on my stomach. It's the little things. Living on the 3rd floor is generally a bit of a bitch, but my fertile state has brought it to a whole new level. When my nose starts hideously and uncontrollably running while in the kitchen on the ground floor, I accept that I must make the trek upstairs to reach my beloved tissues. I stand at the foot of the stairs, my adversary, my Everest, for a full minute. I can't do this. 1, 2, 3, go. Halfway back down the stairs, I realize I forgot the tissues. Pregnancy brain. When I finally drag my fat ass up the stairs, the tissue box is empty. We call this rock bottom. I tell myself I'm growing more resilient. Part of my goal is to grow stoic and even bored in the face of any kind of discomfort, rather than allowing it to be my kryptonite. As I fall asleep, hand on giant belly, I'm triumphant. I'm slightly better in the morning. Since the stomach doubles as a weighted blanket, I sleep soundly enough. Jonah discovers a pair of plastic suspenders in the Amazon package, which means I'm able to hook the stomach up and have less of the weird shifting around. I hug my bump. In a weird way, I'm starting to quite enjoy being fake pregnant. Believe it or not, the elderly editor in my Jewish folklore class is the first to take note of my obviously changed state. He keeps staring at me, then looking up to the sky as if in prayer. The confusion is clear on his face. Did this tween-ass looking whore get knocked up? No, Donald, she's just crazy. Does that make you feel better? The next to closest acknowledgement I receive is at the flu shot clinic. The organizer takes one look at me and asks, student or staff? Student, I reply with a bright smile, daring her to react. Her brief flash of hesitation and cocked eyebrows satisfy me. And what of it? Headed back home, I take my sweet time waddling across the intersection. Who would dare hit a precious conduit of life like myself? By the third morning, I have hit my stride. I'm in the family way. I have a bun in the oven. I'm in a delicate fucking condition, and I own being pregnant. As far as I'm concerned, I invented being pregnant. As it's the first day of my part-time remote internship, I deck myself out in a tight black mini dress, my best working woman blazer, knee-high black leather boots, and my The Matrix dark sunglasses. Stand back, folks. The MILF is in the building. As I strut confidently down Locust Catwalk, one heeled boot at a time, my friend Judy cackles. Sporting my boldest ensemble yet, I don't get looks, I get gawks. Getting to drink up my pariah superstardom is short-lived, however. Judy remembers we have a guest speaker in class and we're late. We sprint, my belly bouncing up and down. Now, I'm no speedster even without fake child. But in my current state, I almost topple down the stairs, all the while squealing how my water's going to break. We make it to class, late and breathless. While the professor introduces our guest speakers, everything makes sense. Staring at the tight brown checkered skirt stretching across her abdomen, I realize she's pregnant. No shit, a sister in solidarity. The second I sit down, I have to pee. It has only taken 72 hours for Instagram to fill my entire feed with pregnancy, babies, and miscarriage. Even though I've heard a million times how miraculous the marvel of creating life is, it has never really sunk in that people actually create a human being inside of themselves. The idea of being so responsible for another's life is so absolutely repulsive. Working in the library, I sit in a small jail cell-like closet on the third floor so that I can take off my mask and focus on my internship tasks. It's musty and windowless, with greenish fluorescent lighting that mocks me for the full 5 hours I have committed to working. A few hours in, the room begins to engage in a gentle spin, which gradually, and by gradually I mean nauseatingly and alarmingly, progresses to full-on vertigo. Without thinking, I stand up, rip my dress off in one swift motion, followed by the dreaded claustrophobic belly. No time to reflect. I sit back down in my tank top only and get back to work. There's no maternity leave here. I'll admit it, walking back from the library in the heeled boots that seem so cute at 10 a.m. is now pure agony. It's safe to say that I experienced a real bell curve of joy and acceptance with my few days of pregnancy. By the end, I'm so fucking over it. I'm itchy and uncomfortable to the point that I feel I could explode. My lower back threatens to collapse as I drag myself and the belly, now safely reattached, up the West Philadelphia streets in the dark. Miraculously, I run into Jonah, aka the baby daddy, call him that, by the way, he asked me to ask you to, and demand that he carry his pregnant girlfriend home. So he does, and it's sweet. Thank you.
Hi, guys. It's 12:37 p.m., and I'm sitting at the desk in my bedroom holding a large pair of black and pink scissors. There is a window in my room, and the midday light shines down on me like an aptly positioned spotlight. I prop my iPhone up against the sill in front of me and swipe to the camera. After a breath, I tap record and clear my throat. Hi, I say with a wave to my imaginary viewers, and immediately cringe inwardly at this gesture. I've been watching too much YouTube. Aloud, I continue. It's October 20-something, and I playfully snap the scissors open and shut. I'm going to cut off my hair. My honey brown hair has been long all of my adult life, much to the frustration of my hairdresser. Over the past few years, despite her gentle encouragement and some friends' unsolicited opinions, I have refused to cut off more than 2 inches. It steadfastly hangs down to the lower part of my back. What are we doing this time? My hairdresser asks at each appointment, only to be consistently met by my boring, just a dusting of the ends, please. I've been this particular since I first saw Miley Cyrus's music video for Party in the USA back in 2009. In the video, Miley, in her cutoff shorts and scuffed cowboy boots, dances on the back of a pickup truck, her wavy dark hair tumbling ethereally all the way down to her hips. I was mesmerized by that hair. I wanted that hair. I vowed to have that hair, even though my 9-year-old locks were mousy and brittle and growing so very slowly. Nonetheless, I remembered once being told that hair changes every 7 years, so I remained hopeful and patient, and after years of sticking to a strict 2-inch haircut rule, my dream hair came to be, thick, silky, shiny, and finally long. I like to think I willed this hair into existence, but I know it's just genetics. I'm thankful that somehow I lucked out. Over the years, I've become irrationally proud of my hair. I'm proud of the discipline I've had, the will not to cut it when everyone around me was opting for sassy bobs, the will not to kill it by flat ironing or curling it every day for school, the will not to fry it with premature highlights. But I've also become irrationally attached to it. My hair has become a portable blankie of sorts, something tactile and comforting that I take with me everywhere. I have developed an unquittable habit of petting and twirling it, soothed by the repetitive movement. My parents tell me this addiction makes me look anxious and is kind of gross. I agree with them, but alas, I can't stop. I love the feel of the strands in my fingers, soft and smooth, but slightly textured and crunchy at the ends. Sometimes I even bring a lock to my nose, inhaling deeply the flowery and citrusy scent of my shampoo. The smell is intoxicating and calming, an unexpected and bizarre analgesic I often turn to in times of stress. The length of my hair has become part of my identity. I must keep my hair long, just like I must always be punctual, just like I must always get perfect grades, just like I must always be liked. It is another one of the rules I've subconsciously ingrained, and my logic is absurdly irrational. My hair must be long because it must be kept simple because I am a good girl and good girls do not do wild things, as if cutting or dyeing my hair will somehow inevitably lead to my spiraling and going absolutely off the deep end. My mom often jokes that my hair is virgin hair, a playful reference to my prudish avoidance of chemicals and scissors. I've relished this compliment, proud of my hair's purity, how it remains untouched and unsullied by volatile trends and toxic peer pressure. But if my hair is virgin hair, then I am the Virgin Mary, a paragon of conventional purity. I don't smoke, I don't really drink, I study seemingly endless hours. I say my pleases and thank yous. I feel guilty if I don't pick up garbage from the floor or hold open the door for the person behind me. Sometimes I worry I'm not adventurous enough. I'm in my early 20s and I should be, as they say, living it up. I shouldn't worry so much. I should entertain every spontaneous idea or urge that pops into my head. I should say yes more. I shouldn't care as much about school. I shouldn't spend as much time alone. I should loosen up. I tell myself that spontaneity and discomfort necessitate fullness, that contentedness is catalyzed solely by making decisions that chafe against one's values, because how else will one learn and grow? And so I tell myself that I should cut my hair like the girls do on TikTok, that I should just say fuck it and give myself bangs or a shaggy shoulder-length shearing because, after all, hair grows back and maybe doing something so unexpected is what it means to live freely. So, thanks to my experimental nonfiction class and my professor's pushy insistence that I do something radical, here I sit in front of my mirror, holding my innocent hair like a sacrificial lamb, ready for slaughter, for sacrilege. Okay, now I'm going to skip a little bit for the sake of time. So this is another part of the piece, which will make more sense if you read it when it comes out. But I've been told before that I am too nice, too innocent, ostensible compliments flung as insults. I remember the heat rising to my face, my cheeks reddening with embarrassment. The values I had been proud of were framed and presented as flaws in my character. I try to be good, but apparently that is bad. Sometimes I feel I should just intentionally desecrate my image, that I should vandalize and paint over the foundation I've laid, and just let go. I tell myself I should actually do it. I should actually just cut my hair, or cut something, take the scissors and... We're getting real experimental up in here. Okay. It's 12:37 p.m. and I am Miley Cyrus, the Virgin Mary. Sometimes I worry I'm not prudish. I feel guilty if I don't smoke. Such great teeth, the ends brush the top of my shoulders. I feel like I need a new name, I say giddily. Felicity. My phone thrums, an unignorable pulsing chant. I'm still here. It's a turning point, she explained, and I notice my armpits are wet. I feel like I like Eva. The length of my hair is kind of gross. Those locks are me. The fact is, oftentimes, I feel like I am slightly garbage. No, not nerves. Chemicals? Try a husband? I'm an old virgin. Strict family or mousy. Hair is just why. I've and let's, hairdresser and I, little ringlets myself, I try. Sometimes I'm thick. I cringe at the adult of myself, my human. All I know are grades. It's misunderstood. Ready to cut. I must know why. I'm adventurous. I decide to off everyone. See, don't cut off. No, choking, Lois. Okay, that nonsensical little bit will make sense if you read my piece. So now I'm going to skip to a little other part that might make it make a little more sense. A friend of mine once told me a cheeky parable about Napoleon. One dark and stormy night, Napoleon and his troops were camped on a mountainside. Napoleon was undressing for bed when he realized he wanted a cigarette. He patted his pockets and searched his tent, but alas, he could not find his cigarettes. Then, a realization. He had left the cigarettes in a different tent a mile away. If he wanted them, he would have to brave the freezing cold and pouring rain to schlep to go get them. Am I really going to let a pack of cigarettes have so much control over me that I would brave this horrible weather? No one controls Napoleon, he said with a huff. He continued undressing for bed, but then, another thought. Am I really going to let the weather control my decision to go get something that I want? And so, Napoleon did what any sane person would do. He bundled up in his warmest layers and hiked to the other tent to get his cigarettes. Except, once he arrived, he picked up the cigarettes, promptly put them back down, and made the trek back to his tent empty-handed because, after all, Napoleon wasn't going to let anyone or anything control him, not the weather nor the cigarettes. Which begs the real question. How is a pack of cigarettes like a pair of cold metal scissors, trembling in one's hands, still in search of an ever-cuttable surrogate?
Hello. You know when she was like, oh, this part will make sense in context? Yeah, that's my entire excerpt, so please just read the whole thing when it comes out. But in the meanwhile, I'm just going to do whatever I want, I guess. Just as any age of empires has its Caesars, Alexanders, and Napoleons, Eve has its own resident master of intrigue and his own cult of personality, the Mittani. The Mittani is famous for heading the first espionage agency of EVE Online. In a time when espionage was frowned upon, it is now commonplace. Nowadays, he is the charismatic leader of the Goon Swarm Alliance, the largest alliance by active players in nullsec space. Goon Swarm is so powerful that it's taken the combined forces of the rest of the galaxy, an allied force consisting of Pandemic Horde, Brave, and Test Alliance Do Not Join, among others, to force them down into the border system of 1DQ1. He is a man for which thousands of loyal followers will leap into battle and drain their assets for. The kind of man that some people are looking for to provide structure in an increasingly nihilistically coded reality. As of right now, I do not have dreams of becoming the Mittani. I simply wish to earn enough money to buy Plex, the special currency that allows you to extend your premium membership of EVE Online without having to buy it myself in real life. I bought a month's worth of Plex for myself, but I cannot imagine myself buying more and living with it. I imagine the taste will be as sweet as the first Subway sandwich I ever bought with the wages the mart that is the extended legacy of Sam Walton was willing to extend me for my services bagging groceries part-time during my junior year high school summer. The scariest thing about Walmart was not selling my time bagging groceries with the same wiggle of the wrist that gets items to scan right without fail. The scariest, most insidious thing was that I liked it. Had to be pulled away from the structured shifts, predictable challenges, and illusion of meaning. A reminder to all those who seek to build their own science-fictional metaverse. Though the layers of abstraction that form a reality can often have completely independent emergent semantic meanings, there is still a brute ordering hierarchy. That is a fact that even Mittani, commander of the Goon Waff, and holder of the so-called Horn of Goondor, which is really just this like email chain that like summons EVE players who haven't played for a long time every once in a while, has to grapple with. In one particularly gruesome war, wisps of smoke curl and twirl across the sky as time shudders, pressured by the howling and familiar sounds of phasers and lasers arcing through space. Einstein's laws of special relativity postulate that as a body approaches the speed of light, its time will be decelerated in stationary reference frames to compensate for light moving at constant speed in all reference frames. Bound by the flips of electrons and the bouncing of packets throughout the information freeway we call the web, the frames of reference which we employ to view fantastical virtual worlds sometimes also follow this principle. Because the server, the computer maintained by the company that operates EVE Online, must enforce the same laws of physics upon all, when it is strained, it takes longer to compute what transpires in a tick, the smallest interval of time a game runs on. Normally, there are a dozen, if not hundreds of ticks in a second. But in this gravitationally bound battlefield etched by countless Davids and Goliaths, each tick contains millions of projectiles, millions of damaged components to track, tens of thousands of players to assert dominion over. In a typical war, for an arbitrary but particular ship captain, they find that their ships move slower and slower as their experience of time in our real space accelerates relatively to the movement of ships in EVE space. An enemy Keepstar was preventing Goonswarm fleets from reinforcing one of the war's major engagements. The Mittani was asked by a subordinate from an allied Russian alliance to tell him where the Keepstar operator was based. The Mittani first told him both the location of the Keepstar and the home base of the Keepstar operator. No, the subordinate replied. Where does the operator live? In real life. I will send my men to shut down his power. Though he was the dictator of his loyal Goonswarm alliance, his power in EVE was still subservient to the real world. I can imagine how it would have gone if his power was shut out. Wisps of smoke whirl and twirl. And that's it.
Hello. My name is Chelsea. I am 21 years old, and I am a hopeless romantic. I'm introducing myself like I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous because I'm addicted to romance. It's been with me since I was 7 years old when I looked across my second grade classroom at some booger-picking boy and thought, I like that. When I was in 5th grade, I read and saw Twilight for the first time, which awakened a dark part of my psyche. Something about imagining two poorly written, borderline abusive men fight over a woman without a personality just spoke to me. Soon after, I dreamed that I was dating Taylor Lautner. He was, of course, shirtless the entire time. My addiction only got stronger in adulthood. My media diet consists exclusively of books, movies, and TV shows with romance. Even if the love plot is minimal, I will snap it up. My favorite part of Mad Men wasn't the searing critique of American capitalism or white male aggression in the workplace. It was watching Peggy smush her face into Stans in the final episode and conquer her happily ever after, rom-com style. I cried, hysterically. Have you ever had someone tell you disparagingly, you're in love with the idea of love? That's me. I live it. I embrace it. I snort it off the kitchen table with a $1 bill. It came to a head about a year ago. It was the middle of quarantine, and I had gone feral from lack of human interaction. I shuffled out my front door in my pajamas with crusted eyes and a mop of unbrushed hair on my head, clutching my dog's leash as he tumbled into the street for his morning walk around the block. Just as he lifted his leg to let out a stream of pee onto an innocent weed, I bumped into a man who turned out to be my neighbor, also walking his dog, a sweet-looking mutt with wispy white and brown hair. We talked for all of 5 minutes. In that time, I learned that he had just moved to Philly, he lived in the building at the end of my block, and his dog's name was Nora. What I did not learn was his name, any significant details about his life, or what he actually looked like. He was masked. In my defense, he appeared as though he could have been attractive. For the next 3 months, I daydreamed about Dog Man. I bet he's a grad student, I told my roommate. He looked older. He seemed studious, like he's getting a master's in English or history. I'm not sensing that he's a science man. What if his dog falls in love with my dog? I should have asked him for his number. I had never seen more than 30% of Dogman's face. Ultimately, though, it wasn't meant to be. Despite my best efforts to walk my dog near his building, I didn't bump into him again for several months, and the next time I did, I saw him come out of his apartment with Nora and his girlfriend. My fantasy evaporated immediately. One good thing about being a love addict is that you move on quickly, always searching for your next fix. Sometimes I wonder what I could do with all that extra brain space if I just didn't think about love, I once said to my roommate. You could cure cancer, she replied. My latest fix is r/relationship advice. For the uninitiated, r/relationship advice is a forum dedicated to relationship problems of all kinds. Under the About section, it enthusiastically beckons, need help with your relationship? Whether it's romance, friendship, family, coworkers, or basic human interaction, we're here to help. People post about their problems, usually using anonymous throwaway accounts, and others respond with their insights. The subreddit's description isn't particularly saucy, but the actual posts are a whole different story. They have everything you could ever want from the greatest love stories, but better. There's heartbreak, betrayal, love triangles, and star-crossed lovers, with a healthy sprinkling of non-romantic family and workplace drama to spice things up. A man pushes his fiancée to start a family, only to cheat on her halfway through her pregnancy. A workaholic couple breaks up after drifting apart for years, but they fall back in love after COVID lockdowns force them to spend time together. A man learns that his coworker has a crush on him after overhearing that coworker tell his cat, "You're a handsome boy, just like your daddy." Like most corners of the internet, there are spelling mistakes and shitty grammar galore, but that only adds to the appeal. The subreddit's main draw is that there are real people on the other side of the screen who are living through these stories. It's more immersive than the highest production dramas, more salacious than the sexiest body rippers, and more intimate than the most intrusive reality TV dating shows. At least, I thought the stories were authentic. That was, until I started spending time on the subreddit in earnest. And for more, you'll have to go on the website.
Hi. The thing you have to understand, a pop star isn't just a person. A pop star is an archetype, sort of like a saint, but not so revered that she can't be denigrated. She exists as an icon, a tarot card that reflects you back to yourself and spits you back out. She is the brand, and the brand is you. Your personal conception of Beyonce is just as real as the woman herself. The pop star in your heart sings just as loud. When I was younger, in high school, each time my favorite pop star announced an album, I would place all my weight on it. I expected a new record to hold the meaning of life, the solution to all my problems. Everything would make sense once it dropped, and I had the adequate amount of time to consume it. The first album I ever did this for was Bjork's Monokura, her divorce record from 2015. I distinctly remember when it dropped. It was a dark night on the road back from Alexandria, where Gran had used to live before she passed. My dad was driving, and I was in the passenger seat. I had sketchy cellular connection, but somehow I happened upon the new record in one of my bored scrollings through iTunes. I didn't even have time to get excited. A silent gasp escaped my mouth. I sank away into my earbuds, somehow fully aware that I was not at the maturity level to receive the music. From the opening strings of Stone Milker, I knew this was a work of gravity my 14-year-old brain was not developed enough to understand. I watched the passing night trees blur into each other as Bjork detailed the curves of heartbreak. The roadside grass slurred by in dark green firs. I looked down at the album cover on my phone screen. There stood a woman covered in the translucent spines of grief, wearing a stark black latex suit against an alarming yellow background. Her arms were outstretched in an almost inscrutable gesture of vulnerability. In the center of her chest is a deep red gash, the wound of heartbreak. Something within me sparkled. It was history of touches, rising up from the depths of loss. Like clusters of bioluminescent eels poking out of the sandy ocean floor, something else within me thumped. It was Black Lake. The album's 10-minute centerpiece pulsing like a heart in the night. Its deep strings of pain eluded me like the black sands of volcanic beach under my feet. I am a glowing, shining rocket, returning home as I enter the atmosphere. I burn off layer by layer, sings Bjork in the song's concluding moments. Though we sped through the darkness, the car never pierced the banal pall of death that hung over those trips to and from Alexandria. Shrapnels of hot emotion weren't yet thrown off the sides of our family. Instead, I was subsumed even further into the chasm of Volnicura. Bjork disclosed the injustices against her broken heart and family. Before she raved through the oblique oblivion of Not Get, Adam Dance, a duet with fellow avant pop star Anony, provide an extended period of light relief and necessary antidote to the other track's heaviness, like a friend distracting me from a bad breakup. Mouth mantra slid past me entirely, illegible to me even now, though I understand it's supposed to be words of encouragement. Finally, I reached quicksand and felt something like happiness again. For the first time in my life, I experienced catharsis. Featherlight and breathless, a weight was lifted off my shoulders, so I was not sure what for. So that's one part. And the other is this. A skull queen high on the heel of a head of a man. Lipstick, smudged purple, violet frenzy on her cheek. A messy angel, a two-headed mother. A laser-winged seraph with her hair down to her butt. Hooved in digilegs, claws like mascara. A two-headed deerling, Mima. Venus on an orange half-shell naked with flowers, a pair of scissors in your ribs, a flower attached to your bodice, the skeleton of a soldier, another a policeman, a bloody crescent moon, a sheath of plastic reading "Run, bitch," a brown boar with two red birds on her head, snakes on gold platters, a pair of scissors and a fish, pasties whipped with leather bound past her feet, long horns of white candles quietly lit, red at the ends as fingers in a bra, wings of two curved candle horns on her back, a look on her face of impenetrable yet raw beauty. She poses on her hands and knees in a white dress, hoop earrings, digi-leg hooves. In the air as she looks into the camera, her eyes open and strong, an astonishing Rorschach test of meaning. Red lips, dark ash, soot-covered skin, ecstatic catharsis, like life manifested, unblemished, unashamed, finally. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Before I begin, I would like to just briefly thank a few of the many people who made this story possible. First and foremost, I would like to thank the many experts whose ideas, experiences, and words built the foundations of this story, and in no particular order they are Dr. Alex Pizzotti, Dr. Deborah Stewart, Professor Lauren Risfet, Professor David Eng, Ms. Kate Quinn, and Dr. Elizabeth Grant. And I'd like to thank them for their willingness to share their experiences and time with me. I'm forever grateful for their work, without which our society would repeat the mistakes of our collective past and fail to understand the magnitude of the decisions we make today. Next, I would like to thank Professor Jay Kirk, Managing Editor Chelsea Zhu, and the editorial staff and writers of the fall 2021 edition of Xfic for their continued support, encouragement, and amazing ideas. Without their help and many cups of coffee, the story could not be a reality. So thank you again for making my first English class at Penn seriously a memorable one. Last and not least, I would like to thank my various mentors, friends, and family for encouraging me to embark on this journey, and most importantly, giving me a reason to care. Rule. R-U-A-L. Rule? Ding. My shtick in middle school was forgetting things. I was a loser who got out in the first round of the county spelling bee because of a stupid 5-letter word, lost all my favorite jackets and lunchboxes in the 3rd grade, and had multiple zeros in math class because I continually left my completed homework on the kitchen counter. My memory was never that great, so I would occasionally pass the time in class fruitlessly playing supposed memory-building flash games. Not surprisingly, I don't remember quite why those brain activities drew my attention, but I did remain interested in the brain over time. Although I got over or forgot my obsession with my horrific memory, I was still interested in neurological diseases involving the encoding and recollection of events in one's past, ranging from PTSD to forms of dementia. I'm convinced that my memories, in some way, shape, or form as a concept perhaps, help tie everything together. Ideas I learned, experiences that I have, adolescent passions I've thankfully grown out of, communities I'm a part of, and people I love can all play roles in the story of my life because of my brain's uncanny ability to encode, store, and retrieve the cringiest moments of my existence. I think it's fascinating and a bit terrifying about how we can recall in often vivid detail the best and worst times we've had with other people and by ourselves. Whenever I think of someone, I inevitably remember the time we spent together, what we last talked about, the expressions on their face, where we are, and what we did during that time. I might be the odd one out, but sometimes I associate certain people, such as some friends I met randomly in a dining hall one time, with certain places, locations, or even actions. I do believe that part of how I remember people and how others tell me about the things others have done and said. So like, for example, when my friend Irene tells about her psycho roommate and what they said to a mutual friend, helps me make sense of the various characters and personalities that play a part of my world. Because of all this, I find conditions and diseases that affect your memory as shocking, harmful, and deeply personal. In losing our memories, we're losing our experiences and recollection of just some of the most raw, formative experiences that make us who we are today. When I was in middle school and my grandfather was diagnosed with dementia, my parents and aunt were overcome with grief. While I knew his condition would be terminal, I didn't yet understand the significance of his diagnosis. After all, everyone, including me or even my mom, who had the best memory of anyone I ever knew, forgets occasionally where the wallet is or what we ate for breakfast the other day. So I naively asked my mom, what's so bad about forgetting things sometimes? Little did I know how devastating his condition was and how it would affect our family several years later. Because of the pandemic, it had been months since I had seen my grandfather. My mom saw him occasionally, but the last time any of us saw him in person was when the paramedics wheeled his cyanotic, almost lifeless, and dreadfully limp body out the front door of his previous care home. Despite their assurances that his blood sugar was fine and he was eating as normal, he was skinny as a stick and unable to respond to our desperate cries. The new home was nice, but it was nothing like his and my grandmother's old house a short half-hour away. The foyer was sterile but pleasant. A succulent was placed next to a legally mandated sign-in binder and flyers about elder abuse. The aides were kind, but were simply too busy to always sit down and hold a resident's hand. There were medications to pick up, families to call, and groceries to buy. Some undistinguishable DirecTV program was playing, a far cry from the Korean channel my grandfather always had on at home. And while the other residents were seated at the table, wearing disposable bibs and grabbing their turkey sandwiches, my grandfather sat untouched. He just sat there alone, staring at some speck of paint I couldn't see. In the car ride on the way home, I couldn't believe that my previous self could have ever thought of this diagnosis as an insignificant one or just something to be tolerated, like when I lost a jacket at school. My grandfather had barely remembered my name, and when he finally did, he couldn't grasp that I was about to finish college. But today, fortunately, I learned that our memories can encompass much more than conversations I have with my grandfather. In fact, it may have a much bigger and discussed impact on our identity and how we interpret our world. Given its role as sort of a living record of the human experience and a primary influence on how we interpret the world around us, the concept of memory has been a fascination of philosophers, sociologists, and anthropologists alike. It didn't surprise me when I read in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy about the interdisciplinarity of the study of memory. Current efforts to understand the role of memory can involve scientific frameworks and psychological knowledge to redefine our understanding of memory as an institution and also, more importantly, an agent for change. What did surprise me, however, was the impact and existence of multiple forms of memory. In addition to the personal form of memory that we often associate with our brains and the other people we know, I learned about the significance of the collective memory of groups of people as well. A collective group's memory can be seen as something very powerful, or at least in my mind, their history. When a group of individuals work together to document their collective memories of a certain point of interest, place, object, person, or concept, they can create so much of the knowledge that makes up our current society and our world as we know it. This is something that we may see in many institutions of knowledge that surround us every day, namely libraries, universities, and even, most importantly, museums. Museums are one of the largest testaments to the impact of memory. They could serve as storehouses for memories in documenting figures, events, and locations that have changed the course of human history. Scholars can archive and present ancient records of previous events, interviews with prominent figures and experts, and restore artifacts providing insight into another world. Additionally, one thing that I thought was really important to see is how people remember what they see and learn in these places as well. It's possible for us to understand how the memories and knowledge of previous cultures can affect how we think about our current world and how individuals talk about what goes on around us. With all of this in mind, I hesitantly made my first trip ever to the Penn Museum. Thank you.
Diane, 11:30 a.m., February 24th, entering the town of Twin Peaks. What is most devastating about the opener is not that Laura Palmer is dead. Laura Palmer has been dead since the beginning. You will never know her and never love her. She is a blank, a lovely corpse, but no longer a girl, not a girl you will ever know as they did. Flat on my comforter rests the external DVD drive, precisely the diameter of a CD, awkwardly cording its way into the side of my laptop. Black box, white lined, finding its way into sleek silver, the precision of modern technology.
This is where we open. There are ducks in a brook. There is a morning yawning over a little nowhere. Something terrible exists in this town. Whatever it is, it's happening again. It's always happening again. The first time I watched, the air of a new city tasted fresh on my tongue. I did not know New York. I had made up a fantasy of reading books, seeing movies, and creating illusions all tailored around this place, which has been just out of reach my entire life. Instead, I watched TV, stumbling as I did somehow upon Twin Peaks, a place so far and so opposite from New York, this tiny town in the middle of nothing, seething with surreal and inexplicable violence. New York is unfathomable in that world. This is how I got through the summer. Now it is my nostalgia. As the DVD comes to life in the late-night present, whirring and humming to itself, I am greeted with a familiar sight, the old-fashioned selection screen. Twin Peaks is split into 17 discs to display 42 hours of content. The first disc only contains the pilot, 90 minutes of scenery. Its introduction screen is a saw, mechanical and foreign, slicing a piece of lumber. The echoing sound of machinery against metal rings in your ears through the tinny headphones. The episode launches after a fumbling double-click of the button to make it begin. It is not built for this kind of software, not built for this Frankenstein of a system. The metal slices against itself once more before we fade to black, then into color again. Captions on, surround sound. It's bizarre to say that it is an easy return into a place that feels like home, but it is. The initial person we see, an outsider, a beautiful young woman, pursed red lips, coiffed black hair. It is not until 20 minutes into the episode that we will find out her name is Josie Packard, a working-class man in flannel who will introduce himself as Pete Martell. Gone fishing, he says to his wife, Catherine, whom he kisses diligently on the cheek on his way out the door. He says nothing to the beautiful girl. A rod thrown over his shoulder, he walks with heavy footsteps through the foggy morning, a normal man doing his daily routine in a beautiful little town nestled into nature. It is dreadful that each and every time that Pete Martell exits his house and peers over to the beach, he sees a corpse wrapped in plastic. Your stomach cannot help but drop every time. The population of Twin Peaks was, in the year 1990, 51,201, but it was initially a clean 5,000 in its inception. Upon complaint from the producers about the town appearing too small for marketability purposes, the creators added one more figure, increasing the population tenfold. This change does not erase the fact that small-town Americana is written into our DNA, a fact which becomes obvious when the coroner/local doctor turns over the corpse on the beach 5 minutes after it's been discovered and says, "Oh God, Laura." He has not only known her whole life, tending to her childhood scrapes and bruises, but has delivered her as a baby, has sat with her at the kitchen table, and has hugged her close to his chest. Everyone knows her, everyone loves her. Laura Palmer, homecoming queen. You cut away from the body to her mother, Sarah Palmer, calling for Laura to come downstairs. Among this madness, a girl who has been missing since yesterday, Renette Pulaski, is found walking across the train tracks in Idaho. Because she has crossed the state border, the FBI must be called in, and Special Agent Dale Cooper appears in Twin Peaks. There is an invisible thread tying me to Special Agent Dale Cooper. It begins somewhere in my chest and fumbles its way through the computer screen, knotting itself around him and around the place where my heart beats frantically. I know him in a way that I should not, in a way that confuses me even as I type it up now. What is it about Dale Cooper? I write, I repeat. Slick black suit, shining eyes, combed back hair. He nags at me like a mantra. When he first appears, I feel a deep tightening at my sternum. It is such an abrupt sensation that I'm inclined to be alarmed by it. I don't expect the surge of affection, I write on the third page of my notes in a frantic scrawl. I pause the episode for the first time to write down what he says, words etched somewhere into the recesses of my brain. Diane, 11:30 a.m., February 24th. Entering the town of Twin Peaks, he announces to his tape recorder as he stares out the window. I've never seen so many trees in my life. Thank you. That is all we have, so thank you all for coming. You can read my piece, Anna's piece, and Chelsea's piece now at xfic.org. The other pieces will be published soon, and thank you all for coming.